It's your boy LSB, just a guy that just loves sports, talking about sports, and want to be one of the best broadcasters in the game. But we all got to start somewhere. I'm here with my man.
Guys, JJ the DJ signing on to talk about this NBA restart conversation. So let's get into it.
Yes, sir. Start off, JJ. What we got?
All right. So a lot of different, avenues we could go for this conversation, but real quick, I just want to hear your initial thoughts when you saw that the vote was passed for this format to be the one that they went with.
I was very happy about the suggested format. Obviously, they had other avenues they could have went with in regards to like the interconference play that a lot of people were like thinking about. But I'm kind of happy about this whole 22 team format. It gives a lot of teams that are kind of on the outside looking in, I guess, a little bit of hope with 8 games before the actual seedings. If you're 6 games out of the then you still got a shot. So in the East, it's the Wizards. The Wizards are the only team in the East that are 6 games out of the last spot. And then it is the Pelicans, Trailblazers, Spurs, Kings behind Memphis. So I was very happy about it. Gives all those teams a good shot at the 8th seed. And I mean, obviously I would have wanted a full NBA season, but 8 games is still satisfying. And then we get right into the playoffs. We get right into the intensity that we all wanted to see, all these matchups. And I'm just looking forward to it. How about you, JJ? What do you think?
I was really interested in seeing, what kind of formats they would even, present to be available in such a crunched situation like this, because they were just trying to get something done. They were trying to, the players wanted to play really bad. The coaches wanted to have their season continued and not, just canceled like talks were starting to happen. So seeing this format, I also am very, happy, mostly because as a sports fan, I just want to see basketball again. That's just my preference. But I think this format allows for, a sense of urgency, a unique sense of urgency among, the teams because, those 8 regular season games, whoever, the teams are playing against, it has more of a focus to it. It's, they're essential. You don't have many throwaway games if you have any at all. They all can matter to where you finish seeding, who you're playing in the playoffs, all those things. It takes into consideration a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how the players react to it and, just how everyone reacts to just being in one place.
Of course, definitely, man. It's like a mixed emotions, obviously, because of this whole hiatus, and we were out without basketball for a while, so there was a lot of questions on if it was even going to be a season, if this was just going to be a lost season. But luckily, the Adam Silver and the NBA governors, the board of governors, obviously, they didn't want to lose this season. They felt there was still something left to save. So I'm really happy that they decided to go this route. And instead of July 31st, they moved the date up to July 30th. So it's not a big update, but it's one day. So the new start date is the 30th. So I'm really excited about that. Also, it's interesting because today they released that instead of 15 roster spots, like we were always accustomed to 15 players on a roster, it's now been increased to 17. So now each team has 2 free roster spots that they can fill up. There's a lot of free agents out there that a lot of contenders could sign to help their team. So it's really interesting to see how all these teams utilize the extra spots. Anything, JJ? Anything about?
Definitely. I mean, the 1 day move up, from the 31st to the 30th just means, faster access to basketball for fans. So I think, it may not seem like a big deal, but, basketball one step closer, I can get on board with that. But definitely, I think the roster spot, 2 more, like you said, being more available could, have definite impact just because there are a lot of guys that, want to play and the chance for, a championship at all. I don't think people take that into consideration because there's a lot of great, NBA has a lot of players and there are a lot of good ones. And sometimes, a player can go a whole 15-year career, and never have a shot at, being on a championship contending team. So why, if you have the, opportunity, why not use a chance like this to, finish your career off the way you want, you want it to go by having a chance to win a championship ring. I think if you can do that, you can help a team out that way. Why not go for it? But, something else I wanted to mention, the only other, format that I, was intrigued by or interested in was, removing the conferences from, making the conferences less of a big deal.
Right.
Because, as an NBA fan, you want to see different matchups, now, trust me, there are some matchups that, will always be entertaining no matter who's, playing on the teams. It's just because of, the teams involved. But sometimes you want to see, different matchups. What would a playoff series be if you had, Kawhi versus Giannis, in a playoff series? Besides, having to wait for the finals to see that happen, it could happen in like, a second round potentially, or a conference finals, or whatever the case is.
Right.
You could see it a lot sooner than having to wait for the chance if Milwaukee and the Clippers make the finals. So I understand why, that format did get a lot of, positive support from, fans and, coaches and the general managers. But, ultimately this format, with the 1 versus 8 in both conferences, 8 teams and 8 teams, I think it'll still be just as entertaining, because something that was talked about when we went over this, when we talked about it, the other day, we brought up something where maybe they could like mic up the players,
Right.
because not having fans there, you want to find ways to make the game as interesting as it can be. And there's a lot that we don't get a chance to hear, watching the games.
Right, of course.
Crowd noise, commentary, stuff like that. So I think if you mic up everybody, and bench reactions are something that, I wish you got to see a lot more of, because they're truly entertaining. Like what I was talking about with, making playoff matchups more exciting. The Brooklyn Nets, they may be listed as an 8th seed, but if they're playing Milwaukee and that bench could keep fans at home entertained, and you see the players having a good time and everyone's getting into it, it won't feel like a matchup that could be predetermined.
Yeah, of course, definitely, man. It's definitely, the possibility is exciting. My only concern would be hopefully the players stay professional and don't, I guess, curse during the game. We get to see all like the trash talking, but hopefully that doesn't arise, because obviously due to TV and radio guidelines, you're not allowed to curse on the air. So hopefully the players don't be doing that a lot. But yeah, I'm definitely excited about it. I hope they consider that, because the NFL was going to do that, obviously, because they're going to be following suit in regards to no fans potentially at the stadiums, and running potentially like the NBA is going to be running the 2K sound effects. The NFL is going to have like CGI fans in the stands and stuff. So Deshaun Jackson actually suggested the whole mic up the players thing. So that's what made me think about it in the NBA, where it'd be interesting. And like you were saying about the bench reactions, I think that's awesome. Like seeing how hyped they are for their teammates doing good, or like blocking a shot, making a 3, and just crossing somebody up. Like, it's just amazing to see. And I don't want us to like stray away just from like talking about the likes, but like the dislikes, because we talked about this yesterday, but there was one team in particular that voted against this whole proposal and didn't like the whole 22 team format. And we discussed it yesterday, the Portland Trailblazers. And the main reason why they were against it was because even if there's 8 games, they don't feel that 8 games is enough of a chance or worth it to risk it for them to play the game. And they're only 6 games out of Memphis, but with those 8 games, like you said, each game is more important than the last. So each game you gotta really grind it out, and if you lose like 1 or 2 games, your season could potentially be over right then and there, depending on the other 4 teams that were invited in the West, and also Memphis. Memphis is 32-33, so they're in good position. But if they lose a couple of games, they'll fall back. So it's very important that all these teams play their best. So I kind of agree with them. I kind of agree that what's the point if you're not going to have a guaranteed shot to make the playoffs? And the teams did play like 65 to 67 games, and that's like 13 games or 15 games left in the season, and 8's half of that. But like 15 is more than 8. You know what I mean? You have a better chance of potentially making it rather than 8. So I said my piece. What do you think? Do you agree with me on the whole dislike why Portland would say no to the whole proposal?
Thinking about it, I think that it could possibly the format could benefit Portland in a way, because just from my understanding, looking at their team, they have probably one of the better teams out of all the teams fighting for that eighth playoff spot.
Right, of course.
When I look at Memphis, they're by statistics, they are the youngest team in the NBA. So how built, I should say, for what the playoffs has to offer, can they be? Not many guys on that team have any type of playoff experience, and that is, the playoffs are very different from the regular season. Whereas you take a team like Portland, for instance, guys on that team have been to the Western Conference Finals, and not for nothing, they only lost because they were playing the Golden State Warriors, who had one of the best regular season teams ever. Like, an argument can be made that the Golden State Warriors, those years that they had, Steph and Clay and Draymond and KD, and the list goes on, and one year they had Marcus Cousins. Like, you can make an argument that that team is the greatest regular season team ever. Some people, traditionalists of the NBA fandom, will say that the Bulls, 72-10 Bulls are because they won the championship as well, when they had the record season. So the argument, like I said, you can make an argument, you can debate that, till you're blue in the face, which team was the best regular season team. But I think Portland, if they won most of those 8 games, I think they would have a great chance. They not to maybe beat the Lakers, but make it competitive enough where they show that they belong to be there.
Yeah, I feel you. I definitely agree.
Real quick. I wanted to ask one type of question here. With all the matchups that we know that they're not set in stone yet, but of all the ones proposed, I should say, one matchup that I think I would be most excited for or want to see the most is the 3-6 matchup in the East, which is the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. Most people say that the NBA is, real friendly, I guess. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody, is cool with everybody. Right. So you really don't see old rivalries anymore like you did in like the 90s or so. But those two teams, you can just sense it. You can tell that they have that, the intensity is there. Joel Embiid is, as I'm sure you know, a player that invokes that emotion. He likes, the trash talking part of it, the intensity of it. Celtics Sixers games have always been intense, probably one of the most intense rivalries in the league. So I think seeing that in the playoff series where you can, hear them mic'd up and you can hear the trash talking and everything, I think will add a new dimension to it that you might not have seen with, crowd noise in the background.
Right, definitely. I definitely think a Boston Philly series would be awesome. Currently, like you said, it's not set in stone, but if the playoffs did start today, it would be Boston at 3 and Philly at 6, and I would definitely agree. Both those teams don't really seem to like each other. Joel Embiid he's very passionate about it. He's one of considered the best big men in the league. Boston is on the up and up, especially after getting Kemba Walker in the offseason. They still have Gordon Hayward. Jason Tatum has been taking the next step in the game. They have Jaylen Brown. They drafted Taco Fall. He's ridiculously tall, and he could definitely be a help on that team. And they have a lot of good talent on that team, and I definitely agree that would be a good matchup. Personally, for me, I think storyline based, I feel like if somehow the Miami Heat could hop up to the 3 spot and Philly stays at the 6, I think that would be an interesting matchup. Obviously, because Jimmy Butler was on that team last year. He opted to get traded to the Heat. A lot of people think that the Sixers are better without Jimmy. They were like disrespecting him and thinking that he wasn't that the team would be better without him. And the Heat are in a good position right now, and I think that would be an interesting matchup, kind of like a former team. Like, I'll show you what I can do. You think you're better without me? Let me show you. Because a lot of people at the start of this season, before the coronavirus and everything came about, a lot of people were underestimating the Miami Heat, being like, "What are you doing, Jimmy? Why are you going to the Heat? Like the Heat, or they they haven't been like a good team since LeBron, Wade, and Bosh and the boys, and they turned it around. They're doing good.
That team has weapons. Let me tell you, and I'm not just saying this because all jokes aside, that is my favorite team. So obviously, I know a lot about them, but just looking what they've done there, and I've said this to I've said this to a lot of people. The way that they put a team together, especially this year. You've seen it a lot more with getting, like you said, Jimmy Butler, drafting Tyler Hero, picking up free agents like, Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn, and, getting Iguodala in trades. A lot, can be said about what they've, done to that team versus other teams that they've had. But the amount of weapons that they can put out there at any time makes things, difficult for an opponent. And then, right, if they happen to play the Sixers, you could say the Sixers have, the opposite problem, where sometimes, when they had Jimmy Butler, he was like their closing guy. And when he left, you noticed that hole, especially from, outside shooting, that, suffered as much. I mean, they have guys that can shoot the ball, but, when they need it the most, sometimes it's like it's not there and they wonder where they could get it from, Right. So I think that would be an entertaining matchup to see, but I think that you can tell where Philly's deficiencies lie, where it's like Miami's strength. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, matchups, man, we could spend a whole, another, separate 30-minute thing, just on matchups alone. A right. lot of avenues we could take with that. But all in all, I think, I like, how the format is. I think, it'll be great to see, and I'm just very excited and I can't wait to see it.
Of course, man, definitely. It's really exciting. and I'm just looking forward to the season to start. It's only June 11th, so we still got another month and 19 days until the season starts. So a lot can happen. A lot of free agents can sign. A lot of teams could. It's unforeseen. We don't know the current state of the seeds right now is going to be the end result at the end of the 8 games. So it's a lot to look forward to. We've definitely covered a lot. And like we just talked about with Boston and Philly, or Miami and Philly, we can go on and on about the intense matchups that we could potentially see. Obviously, once we get closer to the date, I hope that me and you, we can do those matchups in another segment. I definitely enjoyed talking with you, man. And is there any last thoughts that you want to say, or do you want to sign off to our fans? And then, it's awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Right. I think, like you said, we got a lot, out, a lot to talk about. There's so much I'm sure we'll find out in the, in the coming days between now and a month. But I want to say thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I always like, having the opportunity to talk to another sports fan
about,
what's going on. I feel like sports unite people, and I feel like now, that's something that, we're begging for is, unity amongst people in the country. Right. So if this is, just one of the ways that we can do that, I would be, very much open to doing, more stuff like this, with different topics. Maybe we do a matchups video at some point. We'll see, a lot. But like I said, man, thank you for having me.
No problem, man. I'm glad that we were able to get this going. Sorry about that. Just the fans calling. Not just kidding. But, I'm looking forward to another video with you, my friend. This has been LSB and my boy JJ the DJ. Thanks for having us, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you.